What's up, good people? In partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasting Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique Bond.
And I'm Dexter Peggins.
And today's topic for today is Struggle Love.
Struggle Love.
We're going to talk about Struggle Love. Jaheem got an album out called, I think that album came out in 2016 called Struggle Love. He said he missed those tough times, those rough times that we had.
He a better man than me because I try not to reminisce on those days.
Right.
But yeah, definitely an interesting topic, an interesting album name. But the reality is a real thing. You know, you and I were discussing this, that, you know, it's a very broad subject matter too. So hopefully we can touch a few of those bases on today.
Most definitely. And last week we had a great topic.
Yeah.
Dating while broke. Yay or nay, is it possible, and so forth. And you know, we hit on a lot of different areas, and we went in different areas that we didn't even know we was gonna go into. And we both, pretty much for different reasons, we said, you know, it is possible. Now we're not advocating, to date while broke, but we did say if certain things are in place and certain things are in order, you're considering certain things, then yeah, you can consider doing that.
Yeah.
And we also said that whoever you're trying to date, they have every right to not feel comfortable with that as well, or to choose to go the other way. But after having that conversation, after we ended the episode, we just had a good conversation, and we just said, you know what, we got to talk about this struggle of, and we're gonna go in different. There's so many angles to hit this topic. There's so many angles. So let's get on the same page. I want us to always get on the same page. Those of you that are viewing, we appreciate it. Please share the broadcast. If you know anyone that needs to be tuning in, let them know about this. But let's get on the same page with defining struggle love. What do we mean by struggle love?
Oh man, you know, the image that pops in my mind is, and I know not everybody's familiar with this, but a cult classic, Baby Boy. I was thinking about Jody and was it Yvette? Was his?
I forgot her name.
But anyway, you know, they kind of are the model couple in my mind when I think about the subject of struggle love. And what it is that, you know, these back and forths, you know, where it seems like there's always some kind of tension in a relationship. There's always that thing that just doesn't seem to be right. You know, you know you love each other, but it's just things in the relationship where you question, you know, is it worth it, you know, maintaining this relationship, because this thing is such an issue. So whether it be finances, whether it be just a misunderstanding from the standpoint of not coming on the common ground, you know, there's various things, but it's loving each other, and it's difficult maintaining that love in that relationship. That's what I think of. But once again, as you mentioned, very broad subject matter, and I know we're going to go a number of different directions today.
Yeah, and I think they are the perfect example as well. Great classic movie.
Yeah.
And there was so much toxic within that relationship. There was so many ups and downs within that relationship. They did show a lot of great times, a lot of intimate moments, but it just seemed like a lot of those toxic moments overshadow everything. And we had to really ask the question, you know, for, you know, both sides, you know, how much more are you going to deal with? You know, that is one of the questions that we had. And for her, I think she even had a friend like saying, you know, you can do a whole lot better than that. You get what I'm saying? Like, why are you settling for that?
Yeah.
And that is the question, you know. I mean, why we're gonna go in different angles, but why are we as men or as women, but why we as men are settling for that? You know, why do we tend to have those behaviors where we are going through X, Y, and Z, and we are, you know, expecting to drag someone with us? Why are we, you know, going through X, Y, and Z, but we're not doing whatever it takes to get out of that?
Definitely. You know, and jumping right into it, you know, last week I said that, you know, sometimes we have a tendency to romanticize the struggle, you know, and the danger of that is that you lose focus of the person you're in relationship with. And all you can think about is, you know, we're in this thing together. You know, it's like a us against the world type mentality. You know, you're losing sight of the fact that, you know, the person you're in relationship with, you probably don't even like them no more. But the fact that, you know, you come accustomed to the system of working and knowing that somebody's with you, and, you know, there's some kind of camaraderie in knowing that y'all are against all odds and making it work. And I'll be honest, you know, I'll say this, I'm a little indifferent to this subject matter only because in working with couples, whether it be married couples, whether it be singles who are dating or whatever, I've just come to realize that people love whoever they love for whatever reason. Right. And so, you know, I understand that, look, whether it be the struggle or whether it be, you know, the lap of luxury, you know, people find whatever reason it is to love each other. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about the person in the struggle love relationship, for lack of better words, you kind of want to root for the person who is in this relationship experiencing some adversity, and together they're saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to come out of this and be a success. The thing that I look at and I kind of frown at sometimes is, okay, even though you're going against all odds, the person that you're in relationship with, you joined and became a part of that relationship because you saw some potential. Right. What it is that when the potential is unrealized year after year, you know, I question, why are you staying in the relationship? And that's what I was talking about, the romanticizing the struggle, right. Because you lose sight of the fact that this person isn't growing in a relationship. Exactly. So you still have all of these hardships, but the potential of that person has never materialized, it's never manifested. So why are you staying in a relationship when the individual isn't growing? And I think that's one of the main issues that has to be addressed as we talk about this subject matter.
Yeah, and we'll get the two confused. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll focus on maybe the potential, or, you know what, this is a good person.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And we don't look at the full picture and really asking ourselves, can we really build what we really want?
Yeah, exactly.
And you get what I'm saying? And if we can't, then I think we have to dive into that. And then if you can, then I still think we just need to have some type of understanding for one another.
Yeah.
But we do get the two confused. You get what I'm saying? My thing is people look at struggles differently. You get what I'm saying? And some people, they understand that there's going to be some hard times that come. Now, like we always say, there's levels to everything. There's levels to hard times, and it's not just the hard times, but it's how the individual is viewing that hard time, how that individual is responding to that hard time. And sometimes we have a tendency of going through a situation, but now saying this is your situation as well. Even though I made a bad decision or I made a costly mistake, now you have to do something. Now this is your responsibility. I think to a certain degree, I would consider that irresponsibility. You get what I'm saying? And I think that's a little selfish as well. And I think that behavior is a bit problematic, because now you're not taking full responsibility of what has transpired, what you have done, and so forth. We're human, we're going to make mistakes, but you have to take that ownership. You know, how are we really taking ownership of what's really taking place? I think there's a lot of women out there that really do get it. They really do get it, and they really do understand that, look, I don't mind encouraging you on the way. I don't mind supporting you. I don't mind lending a hand. I don't mind sacrificing. I don't mind doing that. But when it comes down to now it's my responsibility. I think that's the problem. You get what I'm saying?
I do. You know, the interest, because I knew at some point in this conversation we were going to address that component. I want to approach it from a different side of the spectrum.
Okay.
And what I mean is this: I think in some instances, first let me say this. As you stated, hardships are a part of life. You know, there are seasons where everything is going well.
Right.
There'll be seasons of hardship. And that's understandable. That's just the nature and the cycle of life. It happens to all of us. As it relates to relationships, I think there's sometimes when we choose to turn a blind eye to what we see and what we know to be problematic. We turn a blind eye because we're so enamored with the idea of being in a relationship that there's this secret pact that we make inside of our heart, and we say, you know what, that'll change once we're in a relationship. Now, to add that to what you're saying, I do know some women, and I won't say all women because that's unfair and that's not true, but I do know that there are some women who notice an issue with a man that they might be interested in.
Right.
They tell themselves that I'm going to change them, right? And years later, they're frustrated about an issue that they knew existed prior to getting into the relationship.
Exactly.
And unbeknownst to that man, the woman said that I'm going to change him. It's no one's place to change anybody.
Exactly.
And so you willingly went into a relationship that you knew was an issue prior to you even starting the relationship. And so you can't get upset that a person is not changing in accordance to what you expect if you knew that was the person's character when you first got into the relationship. And so as it relates to this particular topic, I just know that there's a lot of women who hold men accountable for things that they never took into consideration before the relationship started.
Right.
And so now you're saying, well, hey, you got to change. You got to change. No, this is how I was before we first got together. Now, you can influence me to change, but you can't make me change. Right. And the reality is that these are some of the things that you have to have that honest conversation with the person before you start the relationship. Hey, look, I see that you kind of get behind on your bills, and is that something that I should be concerned about? So now I'm giving attention to it. I'm acknowledging it because I'm acknowledging that, if we're trying to build something together, this is going to be an issue in the future if it's not addressed now. What you're doing is you're giving that person the opportunity to put something in place to address it. Okay. But if you secretly hold it in your heart and then 5 years later, y'all are upset, you're upset because it's causing problem after problem. No, there's some onus you're going to have to accept as well. That's not the full burden of that man. Yeah.
And with men, the language that we speak is we need things up front. If what are your desires? How do you want things? What really makes you happy? What type of relationship you want to be in? The list goes on and on and on. But I agree. If it's like a barrier. If you really just try to automatically just shift us, and I listen to a lot of videos on this topic, and one of the patterns that I've seen that I listened to is, well, beforehand, I just thought that he would turn this around. I noticed this in the beginning, and I always say, men gonna really show you who we are up front. Majority of the time, men gonna show us who we are up front, but you really have to really just pay attention and really take it at face value. But man, if you really try to be like, hey, do this and do that and really shift us, yeah, man, we're not gonna respond to that pretty well. But now the question is, if he is showing some type of mediocrity with his work ethic, if he's showing some type of lack in a certain area, you know, I really do believe we just gotta just dive into that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because now that puts it back in their seat in understanding way before everything was so invested. You know, is this something, once again, like we keep bringing up, is this something that's long term? Is it something that's short term? Is it something, you know, that we can actually build?
You know, I think one of the things that is a real issue in a lot of relationships is the assumption factor.
Right.
You know, I'm not accountable for your assumptions. You know, I'm accountable to the stuff that's articulated, and then now I understand it to be something I need to give attention to. A lot of times we make assumptions, and every time we make those assumptions and whatever we assume the person was going to do, once it's not realized, now we set ourselves up for disappointment. And what you're talking about is an assumption that's never articulated. You just assume, hey, I assumed they were going to change. What gave you the indication that they wanted to change? That's what it really boils down to. And so as we're talking about relationships, and I said it before and I'll say it 1,000 times, in the military, right? When you're promoted and on your orders, it'll say something like, this person is promoted in lieu of the potential that they've demonstrated. But once you get promoted, the expectation is not potential anymore. The expectation is to repeatedly do what it was that you were showing you had the potential to do previously. And so what it is that when you get into these relationships, hopefully there was some potential that they showed before you got into the relationship, but now they're in the relationship, you need to have that conversation of what it looks like to maintain it. And because we're not having these conversations, we set ourselves up for those topics where, well, hey, you know, you don't have to tolerate, you know, him not doing the right thing or whatever. A lot of the times, you know, the guy didn't know, once again, that was the expectation. Now, there are instances, a lot of instances where maybe the person just has no intention of doing the right thing, whatever the right thing is for that given situation. You have to ask yourself, how long are you willing to tolerate it? You know, and I think sometimes that the hard question is, you know, about self-worth is not being answered. You know, how do I view my self-worth? You know, and because there's not a good perspective on an individual's self-worth, you're going to tolerate a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't have tolerated to begin with.
Right.
But once again, these are conversations that need to be had on the front end as opposed to the back end. Because on the back end, what ends up happening is you start factoring all the time that you've invested in this person. You start thinking about, you know, the vacations and, you know, how much money you spent and, you know, the heartaches and all of that other stuff, when, you know, a lot of that could have been averted if you had the conversation in the beginning. And so, you know, us as adults, we have to get to the place where we're willing to have these vulnerable conversations. The vulnerable conversation for me might be, look, financially, I'm not there right now. Here's my plan, you know, and this is what I'm working towards. You know, as much as I like you and as much as I want to be in a relationship with you, you know, if this is something that you can't get behind, then I understand. But this is what it is for me right now. And I think if we start having these honest conversations, a lot of these, you know, negative, you know, things on the back end, we can avoid those.
You know, a good question, you know, when we're speaking with someone and having conversations, is really asking ourselves, really having an understanding, even before you know, begin dating, is what am I willing to tolerate? You know, what like you stated, what is my tolerance level? And it's a lot of things that frustrate us in life. And part of the reason why those things frustrate us because of our tolerance level. Yeah. There are a lot of things that's still going to remain current in our life until we become frustrated with it. The things that we address are things that we are frustrated with. If it doesn't frustrate us, we usually don't address those things. So for things to begin frustrating us, we have to raise or address our tolerance level for those things. The question is, because sometimes we can go through that process and we can still go back to it, you know, why is it so difficult for us to, even if we're in that, why is it so difficult for us to, for one, recognize it and then remove ourselves from it? One of those reasons is, if I'm an individual and I just grew up in a toxic environment. Everything was always a struggle. It was always some level of struggle. It was always toxic. It was always certain people around me throughout my childhood, my teenage years, and so forth. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to be in this relationship and see that, you know what, this is not healthy for me, because this is life. You get what I'm saying? I've always been around this. I've always been, this is nothing to me. There's some people that'll say, you know what, I'm not used to there being quiet. I'm not used to there being this level of peace, because I never grew up with that. I actually think that's kind of weird. You get what I'm saying? And they're a little uncomfortable with it because of some level of trauma throughout their life. So for them, it is going to be a little difficult for them. But again, we have to really ask ourselves, is this really healthy for me? Is this really going to help me get to where I want to get to? Is this, you know, am I tired of, you know, always being around folks where I have to always watch my back? Am I tired of almost, you know, being in these situations where I'm almost going to jail? The list goes on and on and on. And even when you remove yourself from the old, from the toxic, you still have to remove that old and toxicity from you. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And some people, they kind of miss that. They just think, okay, since I done went into a new environment, that's it. No, that's part of it, you know, because it's still that, it's still something going on with your heart. It's still that residue, and that's gonna come out as well. On top of that, there is a social stigma with, you know what, with how we view singleness. You know, bruh, we talking about struggle love. Jaheim, he didn't hit on it. He didn't hit on it. The whole song is about all the good times within the struggle. That means that's the whole time lapse within that period of their relationship. So there's a lot invested, time, energy, resources, emotions, the list goes on, invested in that. So it's going to be very, very, now some people may look on, hear this and say, man, this is just an excuse. No, it's real. And we got to understand the issue and the mindset in the heart to understand why is it so difficult for these people, because we are very, very quick to shake our heads and just say, man, they dumb, they crazy. But it's not easy when you invested so much and then just to hop and leave.
Man, you went a few places on that one, and I mean, the reality. First thing first, if we're honest with ourselves, we have to do a thorough inventory if we're ready for a relationship. You know, like you said, there's a stigma about being single. Sometimes you have to master being single. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. You have to master what it is to know yourself, to enjoy whatever your routine is, and know that you're a whole person. The problem is a lot of times, because there is that stigma about relationships, there's that stigma about being single, we feel that we're only validated when we're in a relationship. And so now we're looking to our partner to validate us. You know, we find our worth from being connected to that other person. When mastering singleness, you already understand what your worth is before you get into a relationship. You know, you spend that time with God, and you know how God feels about you. You know, that you're a wonderful work. You know, you're the apple of His eye. So you already have that confidence before you get into a relationship. The problem is that when you find validation from this person, if they ever start, flipping the script on you, you're going to be out there, left stranded, feeling like, maybe I'm not worthy and all of that other stuff, because you were looking to them to validate your worth. And much to what you were talking about, a lot of people, they only find happiness in relationships. Once again, if my validation comes from being in a relationship, then whether it's a toxic relationship or a great relationship, I need to be in something that, so I can build up my own esteem. And so if I'm finding my own worth in relationships, I'm willing to suffer this abuse because at least somebody loves me, and I think that speaks to the toxic nature of a lot of these struggle love relationships, that at least somebody loves me. At least somebody's willing to go through all of this with me. But it speaks to the fact of the person has lost sight of their own self-worth.
Most definitely. And those of you that are tuning in, please share the video. And we don't want this is not one-sided whatsoever. I mean, there's I believe there are men who look at, let's just say the woman that they're with, and their struggle or whatever the case may be. We also have a tendency to take on that as well. Mm-hmm. And men, we want to intervene and we want to fix things. Yeah. And once again, like I said, we will take responsibility of that struggle. There's nothing wrong. I believe that encouragement must happen on both sides. It doesn't matter how strong that man is. Everyone needs encouragement. Everyone needs motivation. There's going to be days where you're just not going to feel like your best self, and you're going to need some encouraging words. But we have to, sometimes we may no longer be the boyfriend. Yeah. And our role may actually become the counselor. It may actually become the father. You get what I'm saying?
No, I do.
And that, I think the quicker we recognize that, the quicker we'll understand, okay, why am I finding myself having to be the counselor? Why am I finding myself having to be the father? Once again, there's nothing wrong with support. As a matter of fact, hopefully you have that mindset in a relationship that you should support one another. It's a partnership. Hopefully you have the mindset that it's important to encourage one another and build each other up and so forth. And wherever they're probably falling up short, you know what, you're there to kind of just, push them a little bit. But ask yourself, is it really healthy for me to, to be the counselor instead of the boyfriend or instead of whatever? Is it healthy for me to be acting as the father, and why am I playing that role? And really dive into why am I finding myself playing that role in this relationship?
Man, this is good. I say this because in relationships past, I felt like I was venturing into territories that I shouldn't have been venturing into. And what ends up happening is that if you're not careful, the person won't be able to see you outside of that role. Meaning that if you're the counselor, if you're the father figure or whatever, you are almost take on that persona 24/7. And you want to be careful in the context of relationships that you don't do that. You can be a mixture of those things. You can be whatever the situation requires. But you also, at the end of the day, you went into that relationship as a boyfriend. You went into that relationship as a girlfriend. You didn't go into that relationship to be the dad or whatever. You didn't go in that relationship to be the counselor. And so sometimes it's necessary to encourage that person to go to other outlets to get that support. I can't be your 24, your everything in all things. I'm not designed for that, especially if you're not receptive to the way I do it. So, let's be honest with that. But I really do believe that at the heart of this particular subject matter is there has to be growth at some point in time. finances, maturation. There has to be growth. You can't be, if you came into the relationship maybe as teenagers, mentally you can't be thinking like a teenager and y'all been in it for 15 years already, 20 years. And I've seen that, well, hey man, she don't believe in my dreams. You've been working at your dream for 30 years, maybe you need to implement something else to make it happen, or, at the end of the day, it's not that they don't believe in you. It's just maybe you just need to perfect what it is you're doing. And I really feel like as we really start to see growth in those areas of maturity, we'll start to see less of these issues where people are starting to say, you know what, I deserve better than this. The reality is that, we all deserve better, and if we're in this together, then let's build towards the better. Let's not celebrate the struggle all the time. Because even if, as we're referencing this song, Jaheim, he was talking about reminiscing on the days. He wasn't saying that, hey, we're still struggling. He was saying, hey, I remember how it was, and we made the best of it. Yeah. But look at us now. It was working towards something. Yeah, and so at the end of the day, in our relationships, we have to be progressing towards something. I don't want to celebrate. I don't want adversity and hardship to be the cornerstone of my life. There has to be something where we can say, man, look, you remember how we went through that, and man, look at us now. I want to get to that point in my relationships where I can say, man, look how far we've come. Look how far God has brought us along. That's the story for me and my wife. We talk to each other about this and say, man, you remember when we were like this? Look at us now. And the hope is that for everybody who's viewing this, that's in a relationship, that's what you're working towards. Always progressing towards the next thing. You don't want to be stagnant in a place of constant frustration and hardship just for the sake of saying, we're struggling together.
Most definitely. And we're spending a lot of time speaking on finances, but, it is emotional.
Yeah.
It is, communication. It can be trust. The list goes on that may cause a struggle. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, man, Dominic, why you do this, man? And I'm reminded, there's a couple I was working with. The issue was constant cheating. Right. And I had to ask. I'm not going to say who was the cheater. So I had to ask the person who was cheated on, how long are you going to tolerate this? The reality is that if they've demonstrated that this is who they are, mm-hmm. And so I get you saying, well, I remember, well, look how much time we spent, how much money and how much effort and all this. I understand all of that. But the reality is that this person is showing you an unwillingness to change. Mm-hmm. And so if you're content on staying, then that must mean that you're willing to accept that this is who this person is.
Most definitely, man. I enjoyed this conversation.
Man, this was a heavy one.
I mean, yeah. it is so much, man, and we got tons of things that we really still want to hit on. But for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And whatever it is that you want to hear about when it comes down to struggle love, should we do a part 2 and whatever the case may be? Please comment. Please give us some feedback of some of the points that you enjoyed or probably just didn't like, and so forth. And if you have any questions, any suggestions, please inbox us. Please email us whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And those of you that are listening in, you can listen to us Facebook Live. You can also listen to us Instagram Live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I said before, if you have any suggestions, please just email us, inbox us, whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And if you have any upcoming events that you would like us to participate in, we are working on, an event that we hope that I know we will be in pretty soon. So, and we'll give you more details on that. But if you don't have anything else, Dex, I think we're going to go ahead and end it,
let's
bro.
wrap it up, brother. But hey, in partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, once again, this is When Men Open Up. I'm Dexter Peggins.
My name is Dominique Bond.
And we're out.
Thank you so much.